We've had 5 weeks of football. We have had 4 rounds. We are almost halfway through AFL. Gather Round is here. Round 4 of the AFL has come and gone. And do we know more about the teams? I don't think so. But we're here to discuss it with Caleb. He is right up here. How are you going, mate? It is a beautiful day here in Brisbane. Beautiful Monday morning. The rain has gone. The sun is out. And we are looking forward to some nice cool weather and looking forward to chatting about these games. How are you doing?
Absolutely. I was going to say, I've enjoyed the weather this weekend when I was out and about for work and whatnot, out in the sun. I always prefer that as opposed to the miserable weather when it's wet and rainy, which we saw definitely happened at the MCG on Thursday night between Collingwood and Carlton.
We definitely did. We had a huge game, which was, I think it was 85,000, which is not the biggest crowd ever.
Plus 2 gunmen.
Plus 2, yeah, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about that. That was basically the MCG basically let the couple of guys into the ground with guns for some reason. I thought that was a bit odd. But anyway, I mean, that really did affect actually the next game, which was the Lions versus Richmond.
Yeah,
which
Tigers.
I saw a bunch of lines outside of the stadium just going way, way back and just everyone being basically stuck outside the ground even up to the middle of the first quarter. So pretty crazy there. I'm not sure how they would let people with guns in. I suppose nothing actually happened, thank goodness. But on the field, there was not a lot of gunfire from the Carlton Blues, and they went down 63-46 to Collingwood. It was a pretty scrappy affair, as you can see. Wet conditions, 8:15, 63 to 6:10, 46. Magpies by 17 points. It wasn't really a contest after halftime. Collingwood pretty much kicked away. I don't know if you watched a lot of this game. I was listening to it a lot on the radio. That was my means of watching a lot of the games this weekend because I was pretty busy. Had a wife's birthday engagement, so pretty busy weekend. But I was listening to a lot of footy on the radio, which is always a fun time. So as you can see by that worm there, it's a bit of a tight tussle. Carlton, I never felt like had the upper hand in any way, and then Collingwood just kind of proved that they were great at the end of the game. So what are your thoughts on this one, Caleb?
Well, I'm not surprised that Collingwood beat Carlton in this game. I totally expected these to be these two teams to be one of the best in the competition. So the result itself is not surprising. The headline coming away from this is that Carlton are 0-4.
Yep.
Like, they should have won some of their previous games and should be further up the table. So to be in a position like this, where the fan base is already so on edge and so apprehensive about the style of play and a lot of the decisions that Michael Voss is making, a result like this to another top team that Carlton would consider themselves rivals with for top 4 football, it's just not good enough. And I think the Magpies are so stacked. They've got so many exciting players. So to see them kick away, with the likes of Bobby Hill and, Dacos putting another really good performance, the result itself is not surprising. It did seem like a very hotly contested contest. It was obviously quite wet and, a lot of ground balls where there's duels, trying to get the contest going. But at the same time, I think Carlton should be doing better. To be able to lose 17 points down, in front of a massive crowd where, the fans are pumping, everything's excited, but you're just not delivering on the biggest stage. And to be 0-4 after, the performances they've had, it's just not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely not how Carlton thought their season was going to start. And I don't really see them being able to make top 4 from this point. My prediction of them being top of the ladder is pretty much dead. I regret that one a lot, basically. And I said before that it was all about injuries. And to be honest, it hasn't been. They've been pretty healthy.
They've had so many players come back. The injury excuse is no longer usable, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So, again, Collingwood, I think this tells us a little bit about them being able to get up again on a big stage Thursday night football against one of their biggest rivals. So that was an exciting kickoff to round 4. Round 5 then saw us go down to Geelong and see the Cats defeat the Melbourne Demons, the hapless Melbourne Demons, another 0-4 team, 12-13, 85 to 6-10, 46. With Geelong pretty much being in the ascendancy the entire game, to be honest. There was really not a moment where Geelong didn't look like they had the upper hand here. There was a couple early starts, early goals at the start for the Demons, but Geelong just eventually just pushed ahead and showed their class. And I think that loss that they had against Saints and Brisbane, this was a nice bounce back for them, albeit against a very, very weak Demons team. So I know you had a huge shout out for one of the players from Geelong on this team.
Yeah, Paddy Dangerfield stepping up once again. The fact that he got an injury last week against the Lions, massive head gash, comes into this game with a bandage on his head, and to show such bravery and courage going into marking contests, getting down low, he just is a Rolls Royce. I absolutely love this guy, and the fact that he's able to take such spectacular marks and then kick goals as well as a midfielder, it's so important to the success of the Cats side. Yeah. And we'll talk about him a little bit later, but yeah, I was thoroughly impressed with his individual performance, and the Cats as a team performance. Again, not really surprised. They're playing in Geelong. They're so good there. Yep. And Melbourne. I am very glad that the prediction I made at the beginning of this season that they wouldn't win a game until gather round is come to fruition, because they have they've shown so much turmoil over the last 12 months, and all the behind the scenes stuff that happened in the off season. In my opinion, was always going to lead to disaster on the field. And, not all my predictions so far have come to fruition, but this one has, and I'm not surprised in the slightest.
Yeah, I definitely didn't rate them coming into this season, but I think that, it's not a young list, but it's also not a super old list. They do have some young players, so they're obviously trying to bridge that gap between rebuilding and kind of restarting again. You can see Christian Petrarca at the end of the game being incredibly frustrated, thinking that they should be better. But I mean, I think that it is this is what we expected them to be. And now they are 0-4, Geelong are 2-2, kind of pretty much, standard. I'm not really surprised by either of those teams' records at the moment. Geelong have had some hard games. Melbourne have been in a couple games, but again, I think that Geelong are always going to be a stronger team. So, yeah, any last thoughts on this game?
Nah, stock standard. Melbourne got to do better. Simple as that.
Pardon me while I deal with some hay fever. It is, as I said before, the weather is changing, and we are having a little bit of a dry spell here in Brisbane. So it's going to affect my throat a little bit, but bear with me. So this game, which was next on the Gold Coast, the first game on the Gold Coast for the season, I reckon was the game of the round. I think that this game was awesome. The Suns defeating the Adelaide Crows by 1 point, 13-13 to 14-6. So very, high scoring for teams that I feel would probably... I feel like it was high scoring, but I think that both teams probably wish they could have scored more. Like they felt like they probably could have scored more. Again, 13-13 is a scoring 13 points in the game. Probably should convert a couple more chances and maybe win by a bit more. But I guess the main talking point in this game, couple main talking points would be just, Adelaide being strong again, Gold Coast improving, showing that they have it a little bit. And then the last talking point, which I know you're smiling about, is the absolute robbery that the AFL have against Adelaide. They came out later after the game and said that Isaac Rankin should have, number one, been given the mark, and then number two, also got infringed in the marking contest. So 2 counts, Adelaide should have had a shot on goal down by 1 point with like a minute left. So, man, if you're an Adelaide fan, probably feeling pretty hard done by.
Yeah, what can you do? It's just one of those things. It's like to happen in the dying stages where even a point could have changed the result. It definitely would hurt. I can only imagine the despair that the Adelaide Crows fans would have had coming out of People First Stadium. But correct me if I'm wrong, but did we not say last week that if the Suns beat the Crows, that this would be very telling on how we would perceive them as a threat this year in the competition? Like the fact that the Crows have started off really well and the Suns have now beat them, I think that's very optimistic.
Yeah. I think that it's going to be. I think this would be a good marker point for both these teams to be like, all right, we're at this point in the season. Like this is the Adelaide Crows' first loss. This is Gold Coast's third win out of 5 rounds, which feels weird. But anyway, man, they got to fix that. It's like the teams and the lineups don't. So there's teams like Hawthorn, who have played 4 games, are at the top, and they had a bye last week, so it's like a little bit odd. But I think that, yeah, Gold Coast obviously looked very good. I'm still going to stick by my guns and say that I don't believe in them until they play like a team that we know to be a premiership contender, like the Lions or, I don't know, Collingwood.
That's still fair.
Or Geelong. Adelaide, sure, they're good, but I just don't think I really see the Suns pointing this and being like, there we go, we are premiership contenders just because we beat Adelaide. I don't think that's really where they're at.
The only asterisk I'll put on that is that Adelaide, Gold Coast, and like the Doggies and Fremantle, like these are all teams that will be competing to just get in the 8. So in terms of how this table is going to unfold at the end of this season, the Suns might look back at this and see this win over one of their top 8 rivals as a huge moment for them. So, early in the season still, long way to go, but if you're a Suns fan, and I know there's not many of them, but if you're a Suns fan, you're definitely happy about this result, that's for sure, despite the controversy at the end.
All 5 of them are very happy just down there in Carrara, all 5 of them. So, we'll move on to the other Queensland team that played right after this game, which was at the MCG. The Lions defeating the Richmond Tigers 118-90. Man, I watched pretty much most of this game. Again, listening on the radio was kind of the way I had to deal with a lot of games this weekend, moving around a lot. But yeah, this was a seesawing affair in a way that a team who had led from the start to the finish can be seesawing, if you know what I mean. Like, we would score a goal. I say we, I always do that. The Lions scored a goal, and then the Tigers would score a goal, and then we'd score 2. Despite that, and then, there was a little patch around the second quarter, third quarter where we just kind of kicked away. But then that effort in the red time where basically the Lions players and defenders just shut off, basically. And the Tigers really showed a lot of fight. And I think if you're a Tigers fan, I think you'd probably be more excited about this game than the Carlton game. Just quietly. Fighting against, the team that won the premiership last year is going to be up there again. It doesn't really get much better when you're seeing that much effort from all these young players. So what were your thoughts watching this game?
That's an interesting take. I would say this was one of those games where I really wanted Brisbane to just like smash them and up the percentage.
Yeah, me too.
That's going to be valuable towards the tail end of the season. It didn't quite turn out that way despite our high scoreline. I just thought Brisbane were in a league of their own. They're just so much better than Richmond. Like the way they move the football, like especially in the first half, the players that they have in midfield, like Levi and Will Ashcroft, Hugh McCluggage, Zach Bailey when he gets in there, and of course Lockie Neal. They just get the football, look up, and always hit the target. And it's constantly moving. They're playing aggressive, risk-taking football, hand passes, off half-back, through the corridor, and then finding players like Logan Morris up forward, who, again, is continuing to surprise me. And the fact that Brisbane won this game is, again, not a surprise. I always love it when we win at the MCG because we didn't for so very long. But yeah, that's an interesting thing that you just said before about if you're a Tigers fan, you feel more good feelings about this game and how they performed as opposed to the Carlton game. Well, I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Yeah, as much as a loss could be heartening, I think this game could be for the Tigers fans. I
think it's an interesting perspective. I'd be interested to hear what a lot of Tigers fans would say about it. But in terms of being a Lions fan personally, you take the 4 points, you move on.
Yeah, we got next week. You got the Bulldogs at Norwood Oval. Probably going to be a tougher game, but yeah, I mean, you really can't be too unhappy with 4 wins from 4. Like, what are we doing?
And considering how slow we've started a lot of games, to be able to get over the line. I actually, you've been saying in the previous weeks about this, the premiership hangover. I wonder if there is a little bit of complacency at the Lions in terms of like, we know how good we are. Like our team is stacked. Like, do we need to be going at 100% this early in the season because of the quality we have? I don't know if that's what's happening. I hope Fagan would stamp that out if that was creeping into the mindset. But, when you're getting wins, you can't really complain too much.
I think, they know that they're good enough, and I think they're just in like second gear right now. kind of just coasting a bit. But I mean, they scored 18 goals without a number one key forward, which is obviously what everyone's talking about with Joe Danaher leaving. To score 18 goals, Logan Morris has really kind of stood up a bit. Charlie Cameron with 3 goals. Scores from the midfielders, one of the goals of the year from Will Ashcroft.
So good. So very good.
I mean, it's now been both games that the Lions have played at the MCG. Last 2 games, 2 of the best goals that you've ever seen from a Lion have been kicked in that pocket. Hipwood in the grand final and this one against Richmond. So yeah, solid win again, just in second gear. Hopefully we'll move into the third and fourth later on in the season. And yeah, you can't really say much more. 4 from 4. That is the Saturday afternoon game. And then we had the lone Saturday night game at Marvel Stadium, which was Sydney getting back from a bye, winning against North Melbourne 117-52. Pretty comfortable in the end. I don't think that the Swans were really that troubled. Again, just kicking away, kind of like Collingwood, to be honest, kind of kicking away in that third quarter right at the end and just kind of showing their class. We had a couple good moments. Luke Parker kicking a goal against his former team, giving it to his old teammates, Chad Warner giving him a fake high five, that sort of thing. Good scenes. It kind of felt a bit weird as well, having only one game on a Saturday, but I don't know. It was pretty good. My question to you is, do you think that Kangaroos fans would be happy at this point being 1-3, but seeing some of the performances they've had?
I would say you'd be content. I would not say you'd be happy or sad. This is the type of game where you'd expect Sydney to be in a league of their own in terms of, the list that they've got. Like, they should be winning this game by 65 points. So I don't really know how to analyze this from a North Melbourne perspective. Alistair Clarkson still has a lot of work to do if they're going to be making finals, which some people have said in the media. I think that's an outrageous take, but they've played some good football and they're showing progress.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't really have much to say on this game. I think Sydney they've got so many good players. I'm not surprised that they were able to, maneuver the football so swiftly and get balls into Armadi and score goals. Like, Sydney are a good team. Like, they might have lost some, key games at the beginning of this season, but like, they are a stacked team.
Yeah.
I even though I don't think they'll be towards the very, very top, I still look at Sydney and I'm like, that's a tough team.
A little bit of a Coleman medal watch as well. We've got Nick Larkey, my pick, on 14, co-leading with Riley Thilthorpe. That's hard to say with a bit of hay fever. Riley Thilthorpe. From Adelaide, both on 14. And then Jesse Hogan, which is the game we'll talk about next, rocketing up the charts with 9 goals up to 13. So it's going to be a great Coleman race this year as well. So speaking of that game down in Greater Western Sydney, we had the GWS Giants defeating West Coast, the hapless West Coast, I'm going to keep saying it, 132-51, 20 goals for the Giants. They looked absolutely dominant. Not at any point during this game did I feel that West Coast had the upper hand. And yeah, GWS could have won by 120, it felt like. Absolutely ran rings around them. The experiment to put Harley Reid in the back line didn't really work. Put him in the midfield when things started to get bad, which was like halfway through the first quarter. So didn't really work that way. I just feel like West Coast, again, 0-4. I feel like they've looked the worst out of all the teams. I think they're still not bottom. I think just on percentage Melbourne is. But yeah, West Coast, just gross.
I haven't been able to watch all of the Eagles games this year, but from what I have seen and from what I've heard of what their coach talk when he's being interviewed, he always analyzes and spots what the weaknesses are, and yet they're not able to rectify it still. So, like, I remember when the Eagles played against the Lions, he was talking about, contested footy and whatnot. And then last week he was talking about, Essendon were just getting far too many inside 50s and, controlling the football. And as a coach, it's hard to determine as a coach, how much can you impact the players that you have at your disposal? You can say, we've got to improve this. But like, at the end of the day, it's the players that are out in the field that have to do the job. And I just don't know if the personnel that are wearing the Eagles jerseys are good enough to compete with, the middle and top end of the table.
Yeah.
And GWS, again, winning this by 81 points is not a surprise to me. It was always going to be tough for the Eagles going away from home. And,
Yeah.
the Giants have made a statement in a lot of games so far this season. And as someone who didn't anticipate the Giants being much of a threat,
Yeah.
they're certainly proving me wrong so far.
Yeah, I think this game, it's tough to grade because they obviously beat a very, very bad team. But I think that you got to put away those bad teams. Like the Lions didn't really. But I also feel that like the Lions and the Giants are in different spheres where the Giants are out to prove something. The Lions kind of are like, yeah, we'll just coast along a little bit until we get to the end.
I agree.
Yeah, a little bit different. I think in different boats there. But yeah, good win again for the Giants. That pushes them up, I think, to 2-2 now. I'll check the ladder in a bit. But yeah, we'll move on to the other Sunday game, which was a cracking game, I reckon. This was Port versus St Kilda Saints. Saints are quietly 3-1 on the season. 3 wins. They've beaten Geelong.
Very, very surprising.
They've beaten Port Adelaide after a shellacking that they got against the Crows in the first round. Man, they've looked really, really good. And I think I saw the stat in their last 10 games, including last year, they're 8-10. 8 out of 10, which is crazy. Like, Saints, good on you. Like, I'm very, very happy for them. Got some exciting young players. Got some great seasoned players like Rowan Marshall, Jack Sinclair, played really, really good games. And yeah, Port, I don't know what they're doing, man, but they need to fix something real quick.
Yeah. The most interesting thing about this game to me was the 2 jerseys that were being played with.
True.
It was a very colourful affair,
Yeah.
and it was a very fiercely contested battle between the 2 teams. Lots of argy-bargy, bit of aggression. Seeing a fight spill out in the first quarter, I always love to see, when tempers flare and emotion spills over. When there's testosterone flying at the highest level, that kind of stuff is inevitable. And I love that the AFL sort of lets it go, unlike some other sports. But Port Adelaide, at Adelaide, you just got to do better. As simple as that. Like, again, I'm not surprised by the result. I already anticipated Port Adelaide having a tough season, losing a lot of games that they should be winning. But the fact that Ross Lyon has been able to sort of galvanise this team, and I didn't know that stat that you just mentioned before about winning their last 8 and 10, that's pretty commendable. And to have beaten some teams, like Geelong and now like Port Adelaide, it actually sets them up in pretty good standing for their momentum moving forward because, again, they're one of those teams I didn't anticipate getting into the 8. But if these are the teams they're beating, they might actually make it.
I mean, a lot of people think, I don't know, I think it's a little bit of an early season flash in the pan. I just don't think they have a lot of, I mean, I could be proven wrong, but I don't think that they have a huge kind of tank. Let's just call it that. I don't see them pushing on, but hey.
So they could be like an Essendon of last
could be
year.
An Essendon.
Really good start and then finish really poorly. Yeah, okay.
We'll see how they go, but they've got GWS next, which is going to be a good game. It's funny how you see sometimes at the start of the season, you look at games, you're like, oh, that's probably not going to be a great game. And then the way that things start panning out at the start of the season, you're like, actually, that's a really good game. So it's kind of like the Suns-Crows game. No one probably thought that was going to be a ticker tape parade kind of game, but it actually kind of turned out to be a really good one. So anyway, this one was a really good one. I think at the start of the season, like I said, even after the first round, you would have been like, oh, Port by a million. But yeah, Port Adelaide really got to pull one out here, and playing again at home for Gather Round. I'm not sure who they have next. I didn't look that one up. Give me 2 seconds.
I'll look it up now.
They have Hawthorn. Gee.
That'd be a good game.
We will look at some of the Gather Round fixtures, but yeah, this was a great game. Well done, St Kilda. The last game of the round was the Freo Dockers on a 3-game win streak now against the Bulldogs. 2-game win streak, my bad. 97-81. They have defeated the Bulldogs. Bulldogs, again, a little bit of injury concern, but valiant effort. I think that they really pushed. If you look at the Worm, they pushed the Dockers pretty hard up until halftime, and then the Dockers just kind of ran away with it. Some stand-up performances from, again, Caleb Sarong, Luke Jackson. I don't know if you saw, some people are calling him Deadly Dudley.
No, I haven't heard that. No.
He's a really, really short player on the Dockers, which has become a bit of a cult hero. I just think the Freo in Perth, they're pretty unstoppable. It's just their away
They should be,
form.
though.
They should be, exactly, and they are. And they have that kind of late night, Sunday night kind of market pretty well cornered. Of course, being on the West Coast, they're 3 hours behind, so they get that kind of marquee game on the Sunday night, which is, some people don't like those games. Like, I feel like by the end of Sunday night, I'm a bit like footied out, especially with the Thursday game. I'm just a bit like, don't really care about watching this game too much. This was kind of one of those, again, big weekend. Didn't watch a huge amount of it, but again, I'm glad to see that the Dockers found a little bit of form. So, any thoughts on this one, Callum?
Well, it's funny. Just keep that worm up on screen because you mentioned how the Dockers kicked away. If you look in that fourth quarter, the Doggies did slightly bring it back. Like, to only win by 16 points and be up by the margin that they were sort of around that, second, third quarter. Like, I don't know. It's more. I'm not sure if it's a testament more of how good the Doggies are, or the weaknesses that Fremantle illustrated. But yeah, I was surprised by this game. I anticipated a close game, but there definitely were momentum shifts. So it's one of those results where if the Western Bulldogs did win in Perth, a lot of question marks will be raised of Fremantle.
Yeah.
So the fact that the script has progressed in a way that you'd expect is a good thing, but who knows? I was going to say, both these teams, I'm still not anticipating anything stupendous, that's for sure. So Fremantle winning in the West is what you expect. And the Western Bulldogs will go back to Melbourne and reflect on what they did well and what they didn't, and hopefully improve next week for gather rounds.
Well, I hope they don't improve too much because they've got the Lions. But let's move on to... So that was round 4, and then that leaves us with a ladder that looks like this. Topping without playing still was Hawthorn. Coming in second there is the Lions, Suns, GWS and Adelaide. So a pretty heavy contingent of non-Victorian teams there at the top. And then obviously you have...
Which you'll love to see.
We love to see that. And then Collingwood, St Kilda and Geelong making up the 6, 7, 8. All 3-1 with Geelong at 2-2. So it kind of looks so weird having Gold Coast in third spot with 3 wins after 5 rounds. I'm sorry. It's just not going to get over that. Then we have the bottom 10. We have Sydney. I see them obviously jumping up into the top there. And then Western Bulldogs, still again, they're probably going to be around there the whole season. Freo probably around there the whole season again. Port may drop down a little bit, 1-3. They really need to have a good showing against Hawthorn next week. And then you have North, who I expect to maybe be a little bit higher, but yeah, going down a little bit further, Essendon, Richmond, Carlton, Melbourne and West Coast Eagles. Bit of a bottom of the barrel type game next week with West Coast versus Carlton, eh? And here we go. So we're going to have a look at the gather round fixtures. Caleb, are you excited for gather round? Just what do you think of the gather round concept? Just overall.
I love it, and I was pitched this idea by my father, who had heard it off another podcast.
Yeah,
and as most people in Queensland would know, with the recent government announcement, the 2032 Olympics is going to see a new stadium built here in Brisbane.
Yes,
and the idea is that in 2032 that we host gather round in Brisbane with the Gabba and the new stadium, just as a one-off and as a farewell to the Gabba and what it's contributed to the AFL and to the Brisbane Lions. I would love to see that. But the idea of gather round overall, of course, I love it. Obviously, it's copying from what the NRL did with their Magic Round, so a bit shameless in that respect. But for a celebration and party weekend of footy in one specific spot, I'm all for it. I wish I could be there. I won't lie.
I reckon there's not really going to be much else going on in Brisbane in 2032, is there? So that could work.
Well, like I said, I just think that would be a great way to send off the Gabba.
I just think it'll be very hard with the Olympics. Maybe a couple of years before, maybe 2028 or something. I don't know if they get it done by then. Probably not. It's good.
Well, it's going to get knocked down eventually. So
yeah, it will. But we will look forward to 2025 Gather Round, which I will actually be at the Barossa Valley games, which was 2 of them, which we'll run through, but I'm very much looking forward to that. We'll have the Adelaide Crows versus Geelong Adelaide Oval to kick everything off. I think that this will be a great game. I just see Adelaide winning this one, bouncing back. Again, Geelong have had a pretty hard schedule. I'm not going to lie. Like, it feels like what Brisbane had last year. You know, they kind of had this really, really tough run of teams.
In terms of travel, you mean, or just
no,
the
just
teams
the teams they're playing. I feel
yeah, okay,
kind of like what Brisbane had last year. But yeah, that is the first game of the weekend, and then we also have Collingwood versus Sydney, which is again another great game. I think they deliberately, obviously, put really, really good games on and matchups for Gather Round to draw the most eyes. So again, Adelaide Oval hosting Collingwood versus Sydney. That's going to be packed with Collingwood fans, of course. Tough, but I'd like Sydney to win, but I think Collingwood probably will win here this one. The next one we've got is the Barossa Valley games, like I mentioned before, is going to be North and Gold Coast. Again, one of those games that at the start of the season you're probably like, not really sure how that's going to go, but this looks like it's going to be a great game. North have been consigned to playing every Gather Round away from Adelaide Oval. Same with the Lions, funnily enough. They played all 3 of the Gather Rounds at Norwood Oval, which, I mean, what else do we have to do to get a game at prime time and Gather Round? But anyway, that's another story. So this game looks like it'll be a good game. I think the Suns, again, probably going to be too good. But I'd like to see North win. This is moving on to the next game, which is the third game now at Adelaide Oval. Carlton versus West Coast Eagles. Bottom of the barrel. We all remember what happened with Carlton.
If the Blues don't win this,
if they don't,
holy shit, bro. Holy shit.
This will be the end of Michael Voss. I'm sorry. Unfortunately. But this is, man, we all remember what happened with Carlton last year and Freo in Gather Round. And I think that, it's one of those like crazy rounds where things can just happen. You know, you're not playing a home or away game. It's kind of a neutral venue. So it's a bit up in the air. West Coast could win this. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this could be a West Coast win. But again, after the result we just saw against GWS, probably not. Probably going to be Carlton's first win. So that's what I will predict. Carlton going to win this one. What about you, Caleb?
Yeah, I think Carlton as well.
Mm-hmm. The next game is 4:15. It's the Western Bulldogs versus Brisbane Lions at Norwood. This is going to be, again, a good game. Western Bulldogs, despite having injuries, the narrative is that they're still playing well, but Lions, I just feel going to be too good. Again, maybe move up an extra gear. They have some other guys pushing for selection, like Tom Duday, who played a game in the VFL, might be coming back. Probably not this game, but later on. More legs under some guys. Logan Morris, hopefully another good game. Those sort of things are probably what the Lions are looking for. What do you think is going to happen in this game, Caleb?
I think the Lions will win. It'll be a close game.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be too close for my comfort, but I think they'll win.
Next is at Adelaide Oval. It's probably a game that most people, the AFL in particular, probably wish they had scheduled a little bit earlier in the day, not prime time on Saturday. It's Melbourne Demons versus Essendon. In saying that, it could turn out to be a really good game, but just these teams, the form so far, not been great. Melbourne, again, still haven't won a game, but I think that this is going to be a continuation of them not winning. They're going to be 0-5. They're going to be pretty soundly beaten, I think, by Essendon in this game. What do you think?
I hope so. That'd be nice if Essendon get a big win.
Yep, for sure. The next game, which we have again at Barossa Park on Sunday, is the Richmond Tigers versus Freo. I think this is going to be a pretty easy Dockers win, even though they don't play very well from home. I just think Richmond, again, with how they looked yesterday on Sunday, I just don't feel like they're going to be winning. The games that some people think that they're going to win. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about this game. As you can see, I'm a bit tired. I'm a bit fading, but we'll move. What do you think about this one, Caleb?
Oh, the Dockers should win, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Dockers win. We'll wrap up with last 2 games, which is going to be, as we spoke about before, a barn burner. The St Kilda Saints and GWS Giants. Yeah, this looks pretty good, man. This is at Norwood Oval. I feel like the Giants will win, but St Kilda could give them a good run for their money. Very, very good.
Whoever wins this will be making a big statement, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then the last game, which is kind of a rematch of one of the hottest games last year, was the Port Adelaide Power versus Hawthorn. Top of the table versus a team that really, really badly needs a win. So this is going to be an interesting game. And I think that the Hawks are probably going to win this one. I don't know. This is a bit of a 50-50 for me.
No, I think Hawthorn will win. They've been really good form to start the season, and I don't anticipate that slowing anytime soon.
All right, we'll get into our votes for the round, which was 3 votes for Lachie Neale. Outstanding performance, 42 disposals, 170 plus metres gained. Second was Caleb Sarong with 2 votes. And 1 vote was Patrick Dangerfield, which is Caleb's. That was his call. He just loved seeing what Dangerfield did. I'm just a passenger in that one. So yeah, Dangerfield got the 1 vote. Sarong, solid game, and Lachie Neale absolutely on board with that. He deserves the 3 votes for that one, and it won't be his last third vote. 3 votes for the entire year. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting gather round. Did you have any last thoughts before we head off today?
No, I was going to say another interesting round of football, and hopefully when we get to gather rounds that all the teams are fit and firing, and it'll be another spectacular event for everyone to celebrate in South Australia.
Yeah, you absolutely have to go, Caleb. I'm very glad to be working there this weekend, but I think next year I might go just as a punter.
As a fan?
And hopefully the Lions get a game at Adelaide Oval, because the festival of stuff that they have at Adelaide Oval is pretty cool. So yeah, I'd be
that would be sick.
Very excited to go. It's a great time of year. Adelaide, nice temperature. They've had nice, cool, dry weather for the last couple of weeks. So yeah, hopefully can get a little bit of that, and it doesn't rain at all. That would really, really suck. But yeah, we'll see how we go and gather
Fingers
around.
Crossed.
Gather around. We're already here, halfway through April. Season is flying by. That's round 4. We will join you again next week, hopefully for a good round 5. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much to everyone for subscribing. Thank you so much for Caleb for joining me. You guys have a good day.